Every single thing I create is meant to produce the most meaningful contribution that I can deliver. I want to give people that glad-hearted certainty that comes when life is wisely navigated so that people flourish in every possible way. What is up, everyone? This is Jonathan Smith with Redux Probate Solutions. Thank you for taking some of your valuable time to stop by this YouTube channel and look at these videos. It is our hope that they inform, that they educate, that they ultimately guide you as you seek to resolve your estate. We believe that an informed executor or personal representative is often the most confident, clear, and usually the most successful. And if you're confused in probate, you often lose. We do not want that to be your story. And so we have created this YouTube channel to give you the content that you need to help you resolve your estate in the most appropriate time with the least cost, the least mistakes. And not only have we produced content like a YouTube channel, like a podcast, and like a journal on medium.com, but we have also marshaled a world-class team with decades of experience. So whatever your need or desire may be in probating your estate, we have an individual with a proven track record that can help you, whether that be an attorney, an accountant, a personal property specialist, somebody who specializes in real estate and probate. We can help you with all of it. We've done all the hard work for you. We've done all the vetting. I've done the hard work of identifying the very best at the most cost-effective price and brought them to you. So if there is any way that we can help you, please reach out to me. Call me, text me, email me, DM me on Facebook or Instagram, or you can just comment here below if you're local to the DMV area, and we can provide as much assistance to you as we possibly can. It would be an honor to serve you. Today, I am so excited to bring you Mark Cianciulli. This guy is incredibly unique. He brings so much value. In fact, we have made an original podcast that we did into different episodes, so you're going to want to check it out. If you're looking to sell a property in probate, listen. If you're looking to avoid the possible negative outcome of people calling you and telling you they can give you all these different solutions, especially when it comes to lending, you need to listen to the second episode. But I hope you enjoy. Let us know if there's anything we can do to serve you. Take care until next time. Bye. Mark is the owner and broker of the Crim Group, a real estate brokerage specializing solely in probate and trust real estate sales in the beautiful state of California. As a previous practicing attorney, he's got an intimate knowledge of the probate process in order to ensure each sale is smooth and compliant with the probate code in California. Mark also offers ancillary services such as unlawful detainer services in the case of holdover tenants, and handles many limited authority sales requiring court confirmation. A few weeks ago, I had the great honor of sitting down with Mark to discuss a number of important topics related to probate. And because, folks, this conversation was so good, we've decided to divide it up into separate episodes so that you can derive the most value. Mark brought it in this conversation. I can't be more excited to bring to you the content that he's going to deliver. In today's episode, Mark addresses the topic of what to do with inherited real estate. So if you've inherited a property and you want to know what your options are and pros and cons to each of those options, well, you came to the right place, and you have a wise probate guide here at the table, here to serve you. Welcome to an all-new episode of Probate Navigated. This is the show where I dive deep into probate so that you can be the master of resolving your estate so that you have a compelling story to tell. I believe that confusing complexity is the enemy to successfully resolving your estate. And an educated fiduciary with the right team is the best way to defeat that enemy and win in probate. I am your host, Jonathan Smith, and I hope that you enjoy my conversation with the one and only Mark Cianciulli. Mark, welcome to the Probate Navigated show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We're really glad to have you, my friend. We got connected by actually hearing you do a podcast on Pat Hibbins, and I was so impressed. I had to reach out and get you on the Probate Navigated
because of the wisdom that you're sharing. Let's start right here though, Mark. Can you take a moment and just share with the listeners your story, how you got involved in probate and why it's something that you find compelling?
Sure, absolutely. And even before then, I couldn't even believe that this podcast exists. Like, this is exactly what I do, like talk about something that's right on point with what I do. Yes, the Pat Hyman thing, I'm in real estate, but I'm doing probate and trust real estate sales. And a big part of my job is being very, very heavily involved in knowing what's going on in the probate and trust world. So yes, I was very, very excited to know that this actually exists. And I told everyone in my industry that, I'm doing this today, and I can't wait to share it with them. So.
Well, fantastic. That's encouraging to hear. We're just trying to scale wisdom and insight here for people going through this process. And so far, it seems to have really been beneficial. And I think even more beneficial now that you're on this podcast, because we got a lot to talk about here. So
appreciate it.
Talk a little bit about the uniqueness that you bring, because you are a bit of an anomaly in this space, because not only are you owner of a brokerage, but you also are a licensed attorney, and you bring that into the mix. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that's been beneficial to you and the clients that you serve?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think my path to being a real estate broker in the probate and trust sphere is probably a little different than most. First of all, I should say I'm in the LA area, and there's not a lot of people like me that do what I do. I think it's an overlooked space. But so even comparing to those people, I think my path is a little different. I started off as a CPA auditing real estate companies. And then once I was licensed, I applied to law school, went to law school, passed the bar here in California, and did some transactional work in the real estate realm. And then, and I always knew I was always dabbling in real estate throughout this whole time. I got one of my friends that I had met in law school. He was a litigator for 3 years. We teamed up. We said, we want to be real estate brokers. We think we could do well at it. And we did. And when we first started, we were trying to figure out, what was our unique value proposition? Yes, we were attorneys, but I don't know if it definitely off the bat didn't do anything for us. And then we kind of stumbled on to the probate niche. And it was actually listening to a Pat Hyman podcast where he was interviewing Michael Young, right? Yeah. Who's up in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. And we were like, wow, this sounds amazing. It sounds like we would be very well suited for this given our legal backgrounds. So, we started looking into it. We reached out to Michael Young. He said, come on up and I'll take you through my day. Funny enough, today, after this, someone is flying from Florida today to have lunch. I mean, he's coming out here for another reason, but he's basically driving a couple hours to LA, and I'm having lunch with him, and I'm doing the same thing more or less than Michael Young did with me. He's not spending the whole day, but I'm spending a couple hours with him trying to teach him as much as I can. So definitely that's my story. And I'm trying to do that, because I've been on a few podcasts, I've been able to do that with a handful of people, whether in person or on the phone.
Yep. Well, and I appreciate how you're being generous with what you've learned, even giving your time here, man. Really, really grateful. All right. So let's talk about this, because I've got a lot to get through, a lot of really important questions. I want to start here. So many of the clients that you and I have the honor of serving are looking at essentially the same thing. And that is they inherit a piece of real estate, and now they've got options. Can you take a moment and let's go macro here? What are these options that they have at their disposal? And then we'll drop down into each of those and ask what might be the pros and cons of them.
So when you inherit real estate, you can either keep it or you can sell it. But I think it's more practical to break it down into 4 options, and that is keep it and live there, keep it and as a rental and rent it out and collect rental income. Or number 3, sell it as is. And then the fourth option would be to either engage in repairs or improvements and then sell it. So
Okay.
I like to look at it in those 4 lenses for very specific reasons, because I think there's key differentiators among those 4. And I think it's important to understand the difference of each path. So starting with the first one, hold and live, right? I mean, this one is probably, I see the least amount of people doing, but I think it's still important to know. In the hold and live one, I mean, you got to get, the first thing you got to understand are the practical consequences. Okay, what are the costs associated with me hanging on to this property, like mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, utilities, all that. I mean, just like living in any primary residence, you got to understand those things going in. So the other practical consequences, okay, what are the conditions of the property? You know, is this something that I'm comfortable living? Is it move-in ready, or do I need to do some work before I move in? Now, those are the practical things everyone more or less intuitively kind of looks at those things.
Right.
The more technical things that I would say to look at is in California, we have Prop 13, which relates to property taxes. And basically it says when you buy a property, your property taxes can only increase from year to year at a very, very limited amount.
Okay.
2% increase a year. So you can imagine that if someone bought a property, let's just say for $50,000 40 years ago, and now that property is worth $1 million, first of all, when you buy a property, your property has a 1%. So when you bought it for $50,000, 1%, $500. So it's only increasing, that $500 can only increase a maximum of 2% every year. So your $50,000 purchase this year is probably, your property taxes are probably very, very minimal, right? 2% increase.
Right.
But let's say you bought that $1 million property today, and that's 1%, you're paying 1% on that property tax. So $10,000, okay? So anytime there's a change of ownership, technically you're supposed to have that 1% of property taxes. So to be able to carry over a property tax basis from someone that bought a property at $50,000 to carry it over to the person inheriting it would be a huge, huge benefit. Because if for instance, dad passes away, you know, son inherits, and now all of a sudden son inherits a property tax bill of $10,000, that would be
It's huge.
Yeah, that would be very burdensome on him. Yeah. But if you can say, okay, well, no, I'm actually getting the property tax basis of $500 plus these 2% increments. Let's just say it's $1,000. That's a $9,000 a year saving. So my point is, you know, that is something that needs to be looked at, and you need to understand the rules in order to capture that benefit. Not to say that each individual listening here, that's either maybe an administrator or executor or beneficiary, needs to know how it operates, but I think it's something that you need to be aware of so you can bring it up to your attorney. So
it's huge. You're leaving yourself extremely vulnerable if this is a blind spot. And we're talking about a pretty big amount of money here left on the table. And let me bring this up, Mark. Given your market, you're bringing in an expertise here that's unique to probate. We're talking about taxes. We're talking about inherited real estate. How important is it, by the way, here for a client to be interacting with a real estate professional who actually understands this probate / resolving an estate world versus somebody who does not?
To answer your question, I think it's very important. It's something that I try and address to people that are new to probate, you know, every single day. And it's, I mean, first of all, probate is a court supervised process with very stringent requirements. And what I'm doing, technically my job at its core, is to sell real estate within the probate context.
Right.
So I better know the rules in order to, you know, not cause delays, not cost money to the estate. And I can give you examples later of specific examples in order to prove up what I'm talking about, but I think it's extremely important. The simple answer to your question is extremely important and most often undervalued.
Yeah.
Most people think, oh, I just need a realtor to sell real estate, right? I mean,
right.
Why do I need what's a probate realtor?
Right. Okay, good.
Oh, I was just going to say, so the property tax rules in order to preserve a property tax from generation to generation is a benefit of option one. I just wanted to mention one disadvantage of option one.
Yeah.
And it's more of a practical matter, but let's say brother and sister inherit one property. Well, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense for both of them to live together, if they're both adult. So, that's where I think when there's multiple beneficiaries, this option one is not really a viable option.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and then we can move on to option two.
Let's go to option two then.
Okay.
Let's talk about investment property. So where or to what client, what situation does that make sense?
Option two is to hold and to rent out the property as a rental. And I'm first of all, in general, I'm a big proponent of rental property because it creates more or less passive income, and you're able to capture the appreciation over the years. You're able to deduct expenses. You're able to deduct depreciation. So there's a lot of, key benefits into real estate investing in general. And this is basically essentially a form of real estate investing. But in the probate context specifically, I would say another benefit here is still that same key in property tax basis preservation. So the same rules can apply even if you're holding this as a rental. There's no rule that just because you're inheriting a property from dad to daughter that it excludes you if daughter decides to keep this as a rental. And think about what that does. That's just going to it's going to decrease your expenses and increase your bottom line.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So
this is an attractive option for individuals that are looking to make cash now and cash later through this as an investment. Are there specific things that they need to make sure that they are asking and or finding answers to on this option that maybe you find other people don't typically think through?
Well, here's the common kind of pitfall that I see, and it's also typically with multiple beneficiaries. So let's switch over, because it doesn't really matter probate and trust context, but let's say it's a trust context, and there's one property, one house, let's say in a trust, and there's two siblings that are going to inherit it. And let's say the trust distributes the property in both brother and sister's name, okay? And they both decide, yep, we want to keep it as a rental, and we want to rent this thing out for forever. And then all of us, a year later, brother decides, you know what? I actually kind of need the cash, and sister, will you just buy me out? Well, if that happens, that's a change of ownership.
Yeah.
That's outside of this exclusion, this property tax basis reassessment exclusion. And what that's going to do, it's going to trigger a property tax basis increase, just like any other sale. So I like to make sure anytime there are multiple beneficiaries that they know if this is the way, if you can anticipate this type of thing, and you can't always, then instead of distributing the property from the trust to the two siblings and then having a sibling buyout, rather than doing that, the trust could get a loan, distribute the proceeds of that loan of half the loan amounts to one sibling, and then distribute the whole property to the other sibling. And if that's done, the sibling who is inheriting the property there's no triggering of property tax assessment, and then the other sibling gets the proceeds that they would have got. So it's just thinking ahead and structuring it right. And again, this is not the realtor's job. This is not the successor trustee's job. This is really the attorney's job. But if the more a successor trustee or beneficiary or someone knows about it to bring it up, the more likely it is that it's going to be done right from the outset.
Right.
So
that's fantastic. Okay, let's talk about this third option and
sure.
Sell it.
So I really like this third option, especially for my clients in California. Okay, so the third option is to sell in an as-is condition. And the reason I like that is, well, there's a few reasons. One, when you inherit a property, you get a what is called a stepped-up basis, and that means if Dad bought a property for $50,000 and now it's worth $1 million and Dad is still alive, Dad would have to pay capital gains on $950,000. But a stepped-up basis, when it's transferred via inheritance, the son and daughter, their basis gets stepped up to whatever it's worth at the date of death. So now, son and daughter inherit what's worth $1 million and they want to sell it today for $1 million, they're paying zero. There's $0 subject to capital gain tax. Huge benefit.
Yeah, huge.
To the beneficiaries of real estate. So that's one reason. And let me clarify. You get a stepped-up basis, whether you're going to improve the property or you're going to sell it as is. It's just something that I still like to mention. It's, when you're going to sell a property very near, post passing, you're most likely going to pay zero to very little capital gains tax. The other reason I really like selling as is condition is there are very limited disclosures in the sale. So you don't have to, basically the assumption is, the beneficiary didn't live here, doesn't know much about it. So we're not going to require, you disclosing a bunch of stuff about it. Now, if you do know, have actual knowledge of something, you have to disclose it. But, in the probate context, that's a huge advantage. I mean, we can now market this as is, we aren't doing anything. We don't know about any issues, and it's on, now the burden is on the buyer. So again, I really like the sell as is option for that. And then the third reason I like the sell as is option is because, like most parts of the country, there are a lot of real estate investor types, flippers out there. And what's been happening is the value between an as-is property in, let's say, distressed condition and the value between the same property after it's fully renovated, where it may have been a larger margin in the past, has now been squeezed because of all this excess demand. So, where a flipper may have made 20% in a few years ago is now making 10% return on. So that's why it's like the risk of messing with a property and trying to improve it and trying to capture that extra equity is actually, in my mind, very risky at this time. So we've been able to drive the price up for as-is property for our clients, pretty effortlessly. So
let's pause there for a moment, Mark. Sure. Let's dig down a little deeper in there, because I'm imagining a listener here who's benefiting from this, and they're saying, hold on, Mark, as is, it doesn't seem to me that we're going to command the most amount of money if we do as is versus improving the condition of the property. Tell me more. So
sure.
Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So my point is, if we're inheriting $1 million property right now in as-is condition, and the after repair value is $1.2 million, what I'm saying is where maybe you could spend $100,000 to capture that. So now your basis is 1.1. You can capture that extra additional $100,000. What I'm saying is, in these days, in the market we're in right now, that number is squeezed. I mean, now
there's so much demand.
There's so much demand. There's so much investor demand.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the I think it's even more, the compounding effect is making it even more risky, because those pretty pennies, those fully done remodeled houses are actually sitting longer, as we, in the market that I'm speaking of right now, are sitting longer, and I'm seeing more price reductions. So, the investor demand is there, yet the retail end user buyer demand, I feel like, is starting to come off a little bit. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm not saying don't do it, and I'm not saying there's money to not to be made. I'm just saying it's more risky in my mind than it has been in previous years.
That's really good. And I think the thing to underscore here is for everybody listening, I think it's really important what Mark is saying, to know your market, know the inventory, know the demand, know what's going on, and be able to speak with somebody who not only knows what they're talking about, but can prove it to you with results. And I think especially having somebody here with probate experience is going to help you think through all these questions. I think it's well said, my friend.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the one and only Mark Cianciulli, and if you did, please be sure to let us know. You can connect with me on Instagram at I am Jonathan Smith. Be the first to listen to future episodes and previous episodes by subscribing to the show. All of our episodes can be found on all the different pod platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, and others. And just by way of reminder, you can find links to everything discussed in the show notes at medium.com/@probatejournal. And until next time, and as always, thank you for listening.